Okay, guys, this week we are going to be reviewing symbolism and specifically how symbolism is used in poetry. So, as a review, remember that symbolism is a figure of speech where an object, person, or situation has another or new meaning beyond itself other than its literal meaning. Remember, we talked about literal versus symbolic. This is not a new concept to us. We've been talking about this since we read Trouble together. The actions of a character, word, or event that have a deeper meaning in the context of the story or poem can also be considered symbols. Many poets use symbolism to deepen the meaning of their poems and relate better to the reader. So here's some examples. We talked about some of these. Remember, a chain can symbolize the coming together of two things. A ladder can represent a relationship between heaven and earth. A mirror that's broken can sometimes represent an unhappy union or separation. Roses can be a deeper meaning for love, a dove standing for peace. And remember that we talked about in Trouble that a storm, when described and used, can stand for going through a hard time or for a time of chaos, just like in Trouble. Colors in our culture are symbolic. Remember thinking about some of those stories that you used to read. Evil is always considered black. The bad guy wears black. The good guy wears white. Red can symbolize blood or passion or danger. Purple, we talked about biblical idea of purple standing for royalty, and so on. The elements, when used in poetry, can be deeper symbols. So fire could be a symbol for cleansing or purification, or another example of how something is chaotic. Water can be a symbol of life and cleansing. Air can be the symbol of change. Wind can also be the symbol for change. And stone, the symbol of building or solidity or a foundation, just like Jesus Christ. More biblical symbols, besides, of course, we talked about the cornerstone being the symbol for Jesus. Putting on armor in the Bible is kind of a symbol for spiritual protection. Sheep are the symbol for the followers of God. Of course, the lamb is Jesus. We talk about the body, the church, symbolic for the many jobs that we all have, but we're all one in Christ. The salt is a symbol for judgment and purification, the role of Christians in the world. We talked a lot about communion, taking communion, the body and the bread representing Christ, his death, his blood being the grape juice or the wine, and then baptism being that symbol for new life in Christ. So we talked all about these Christian examples as well. In English, as English poetry has developed over hundreds of years, certain symbolic meanings have attached themselves to such things as colors, places, times, and animals. But you can't merely plug the meaning into a poem and expect to fully understand it. Your own knowledge, associations, and experiences are what will lead you to a deep and personal connection to a poem. A couple other examples that I found. Sleep is often related to death. Night often suggests darkness. Dreams are linked to future or your fate. And seasons often represent change or different age or different things like that. So we're going to be reading 3 poems this week by Robert Frost. So here's some basic information about him. He is an American. He's 4-time Pulitzer Prize winner in poetry. He used realistic life through his language and situations in his poems, and they became very familiar to the common man. And that's why his poems were so popular, because we can relate to them. He was a special guest at President John F. Kennedy's inauguration, and he became the poetic force and unofficial poet laureate for the United States. So anytime they needed something written that was poetic, they called on Robert Frost. He was a professor at many universities, including Amherst College and my husband's favorite, the University of Michigan. He's known for his most famous poems, The Road Not Taken, Mending Wall, and Nothing Gold Can Stay. We'll be reading The Road Not Taken, Nothing Gold Can Stay, and Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. He did die of complications from prostate surgery in 1963. Just another review. This review I found on his website, and it goes a little bit into why he was regarded as such a great poet. He was the only poet and one of only 4 persons to ever accomplish the 4 Pulitzer Prizes for poetry. He's highly regarded for his deep understanding of human nature, leading to brilliant dramatic monologues or dramatic scenes in his poems. He is known for his realistic depictions of rural life, capturing the rhythms of actual speech and depicting the human response to nature's process. He's considered by many as the greatest American poet of the 20th century. So we're going to be reading 3 of his poems. The first one that you'll be reading tomorrow is The Road Not Taken.